That's the second part of the introduction to data analytics and visualization by using Python. Here in the first section, we will learn how to initialize the Python environment in the Google Colab research account. Now we will move on to the next section to initializing the Python modules and see how we could use them for the visualization. So if you click on the next page, so that's the introduction to the NumPy, Pandas, matplotlib, and seaborn, which are the really famous and useful packages and libraries for data visualization and data analytics available in the Python. So there are several bindings that we use in this workshop, such as the NumPy, Pandas, matplotlib, and seaborn, which are listed here. So in order to import or initialize them in the environment, you need to type these commands as import numpy as mp, import pandas as pd, import matplotlib pyplot as plt, and import seaborn as cns. So these are the commands that would initialize these modules or these packages for you. So let me show you. If I go to my Google Colab account and create a new notebook here. In order to initialize the numpy, you need to type the import numpy as mp. For the pandas, you need to type import pandas as pd, import matplotlib pyplot as plt for the matplotlib, and import seaborn as cns. And then just click here in this triangle here to run the cell, or use the shift and enter for running the cell and creating a new empty cell for you. So I'm just going to use the shift and enter. So it tries to connect to the Google Colab server, and then it would just run my commands, and hopefully if something is missing, it would download and install it automatically. So that's the advantage of the Google Colab environment, because if something is missing, it would just install it for you interactively and automatically. So that's the command. It just shows me that all the modules are loaded or imported successfully here. So as I said, you need to just type this command and make sure you don't see any error. But that's the warning. It's okay. It's just because of some mismatch between the pandas version available in the Google Colab environment, which is not really important for us. But beside that, you should not see any error here when you import all the modules. The next section is to how to upload dataset into NumPy array and pandas data frame. We want to use some of the files that we downloaded in the previous section, in the previous video, particularly the breast cancer dataset. So here we will learn how to upload a data file into the Google Colab environment from your local machine. If you come here, you just need to click here for the files. It just gives you all the files available in this machine in the Google Colab server. And in order to upload a file, you need to click here, upload to seaborn storage. And then I'm looking for the breast cancer data.csv file in my local machine, because I just downloaded that file. So if it's uploaded successfully, you should see the breast cancer data CSV in this tree of files and directories. As I said, you need to click on the upload to seaborn storage, and then see the breast cancer data.csv here. In order to load this file into a NumPy array, we use the again from txt class or function here. So that's the full syntax for loading the file. I'm just copy it here. So it says I want to store the data set in the breast cancer data.csv file. And I use the numpy because I just have the MP here, which is the abbreviation for the numpy as I defined in the first cell that I loaded the modules. And then I use the again from txt function. The first argument here is the name of the file, breast cancer data.csv. The second argument is the delimiter, which because this file is a comma separated value file, so the delimiter is just a comma. And the skip header tells the again from txt that skip the first line because the first line is just a header. And the numpy arrays don't have any functionality to load the headers. So that's the reason why I want to skip the first line. If I click the shift enter again, it just loads the file into the data variable or data array. As I said, the first argument is the file name, the second one is the delimiter, and the final one is just tells the numpy to skip the first line because it's just a header. It's not the actual data that we want to use for the visualization. One problem with using the numpy arrays in comparison to the pandas data frame that we will use in the next section and the rest of this workshop is that if you have a mixed data type data set in your file, for example, you have some numeric values and you have some other string for some names or some string values, it's really hard to handle this kind of mixed data type in the numpy array. And because of that, also you need to tell the numpy to just skip how many lines, because those lines maybe are the headers. As a result, one of the best alternatives to the numpy arrays are the pandas data frame that just could load the file automatically, find the data type automatically for you, and also find the headers automatically, and then you can just call the column of your table based on the name of the column that you just have in your header. So I'm going to load the same exact data set by using the pandas data frame as well. So that's the command. I just named my pandas data frame df, which is just the abbreviation for the data frame. You can just use whatever you want here. And the first one is the PD, with just the abbreviation for the pandas as I defined the first cell here. Import pandas as PD. And the read CSV file would read the CSV file, the breast cancer data.csv. And that said, you don't need to tell what's the delimiter or how many lines you want to skip, because that's just about the header. So I'm going to load that as well. So make sure you don't see any error, because if you see some errors here, that means the file is not loaded successfully into the Python environment. So make sure you don't see any error when you run the cells. As you see, in comparison to the NumPy array, using the pandas data frame are much more easier and much more understandable in comparison to the NumPy arrays. So, as we said, we loaded these two data sets. Now we want to use, for example, the first and second column for creating a scatter plot. The syntax is that because every file that is loaded from the file by using the again from txt is just sorted based on the rows, but because we want to use the columns as the x and y for the visualization, we need to take the transpose, which is just this t would transpose the data variable as is defined here, and I take the first column, that is 0, as the x variable, and the second column shows as the one as the y variable. So make sure we have them here. As I said, we need to transpose that because it just is stored as the row, but we want to use them based on the column. So these are two commands define our x and y for the visualization. Make sure you run the shift enter to define the x and y variables, and then use this plot function from the matplotlib to plot the x versus y. And this O denotion is just shows we want to use the circles for the markers here. So I'm just going to type that here. I want to plot the x versus y, and the markers should be just a circle. So if I click here, and so that just plot these two data points versus each other. You see that we don't have any x-axis or y-axis labels, and also it's really hard to find what was these two variables that we plotted against each other. So in the next sections, we will see how to make the visualization more informative and much easier in comparison to what we saw in this introduction here. But in comparison to using the pandas data frame, it's more informative because instead of defining the x and y, I could use my pandas data frame defined as df, and I want to use the mean area as the x because I know that the mean radius is the first column in my data set, and the second one is the mean texture. You see that it just gives you some even suggestions what variables available in your pandas data frame, so that's really useful. And then again, I want to tell that I want to use the circles for the marker. So I should see the same visualization, but you see that using the pandas data frame is much more informative because instead of using the x, y, or 0, 1, I could just call the columns based on their names that I have in my header as the mean radius, mean texture, or any other columns that you have in your data set. So that's the power of the pandas data frame in comparison to NumPy arrays. So that's much more informative and close or similar to the English language. So at the end, you could see the final notebook for the visualization that we have in this section, in this shared Google Colab notebook. So make sure you go through all the materials in this section. And in the next videos, we will learn how to use seaborn and other functionalities of the Python bindings for creating more informative and compelling visualization. Thank you so much.